So today's cardinal lesson, we're talking about solo aging and are you prepared? And even if you're a couple, I mean, it's probably in the cards that one of you is going to outlive the other, and they're going to be a solo agent. And I just attended a conference where the topic of one of the breakouts were these experts on solo aging, and I have a lot for you coming on this. So, Tom, why are we doing this video today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're doing this video because financial planning is more than the numbers, than the tax rates, than the investments, right? I mean, that's a piece of it, and those are important pieces of it. But it's planning for the rest of your life, right? The people we're meeting, the clients we're meeting, this might be you, is you're in your mid 60s, you're thinking about retiring. We're really trying to plan this next stage of your life. And this becomes super important. This planning and if you're a couple, it's planning for what happens when the first one of you passes away and we have that single spouse remaining. If you've never been married, this is important to you, right? Because there's different planning issues that come around when there's only one of you. So again, financial planning is more than just the numbers. And in some ways, the stuff we're going to talk about today is almost just as important, if not more important than the numbers here. So again, this listen on because I think this is going to be very helpful, even if you're married, right? Because the solo aging is easy to think about people who are divorced or if they've always been single. But we're really talking to you, the couples, too, because one of you likely is going to die first. I'd really like all of you to listen. So let me bring up the show notes here. You can find this below our video here, or you can also find it on our website at cardinalguide.com. We have the board like we always do. If you're watching on your phone, I'd recommend going online, printing it out so you get a little bit bigger version of this. And then we have sort of Hans attended a conference where they really presented on this. So we have the sort of slides they had. We'll hit all the key points as we go through the board. But if you want to look at that, that's also in the show notes there.
Okay. I mean, my father passed away at about 70. Yeah, at 70. My mom was 71. She lived till 90. Last 10 years of her life, she had Alzheimer's. And so she was a solo ager for 19 years. My father-in-law passed away the same year my dad died. He was older, he was 80, but his wife, my mother-in-law, was about the same age as my mom. She lived to 92. And so the amount of time that many of us, even that are married now, are going to, one of the two of us is going to spend as a solo ager, uh, is you better listen up. And the topic of this meeting, I mean, they went in so many directions. That's why the board is kind of busy. But what I was doing while I was listening to their seminar and listening to the questions, listening to the individual presentations, I'm applying everything they're teaching me to all seven things. That's why I go to most conferences, is getting content for these videos, appropriate content. And so the first place we're going to go is there's three entry paths to being a solo ager. Is that you got the lifelong singles, and I'm going to talk to you about one of those guys. I'm thinking of a whole bunch of clients during the seminar that this is their deal. They have no children, they've been single their whole life, and they don't foresee getting married, and they're at retirement, and they're planning things. They are a solo ager. Widowhood, who I just described, both my mother and my mother-in-law, and I was the person giving them a lot of financial advice during those 18 years of solo aging. And then you have this thing called silver divorce, which they had a lady on the panel that just the incidence of that, and that's defined as people that were, over 60 and they've been married for 25 years or more, and they get divorced, and that creates immediate solo agers on both sides. So, this happens, but I think even married people are headed there, typically through this. Now, whether it's for a long period of time or not, listen up. So the first place that I want to go, that I got out of this whole thing, is this trusted care partner. So if I tell you about my client, who is in this client that we've just taken on, we met him about 3 months ago, and he's got between $3 and $4 million in his IRA. He's been very good about saving. really good about not ever paying taxes on that money. And so he's got a big old bundle of money, and he's now retired, and he's just pulling a little bit out of that and combined with Social Security, and he's living just fine. And he's just living and he's living and he's living. And, you know, what's going to happen is he's going to pass away at some point, and he's going to have a big, huge untaxed IRA. And somebody is going to get all that, and they're going to have a big tax bill. And he's not even really that worried about that because he has no children. His trusted person is his brother, who's a little bit older than him. And he hadn't really thought beyond that. And so what I'm doing is taking him to the end of his life, not beyond the end of his life, because he's just not too worried about who gets all this money that's still left after he dies. And he says it'll go to his brother, and his brother will probably be in the same shape as him. But even beyond that, nephews and nieces, that's just not of a real concern to him. And I'm not going to make it my job to make that. I mean, charities are an option. There's lots of things, but I'm more concerned, and I want to get him concerned about that period of time, which is possibly coming for him to where he is no longer able to make good decisions on his own, and he needs somebody to act on his behalf. And so, I mean, our whole conversation, I mean, he's really interested in me over this 401k, IRA, taxes, Roth conversions, paying the taxes now, and taxes. I mean, that's where this guy is. Income is really not a big problem for him because he just doesn't spend a lot of money. I mean, his wants relative to his worth are, and so, I mean, maybe we went there a little bit, but this is where he is. And where I'm taking him is to kind of that period, let's just say when he's 82, he has a stroke, and now he lives to 87, 88, 89, 90. And from that whole time, he's not able to take care of himself. He needs to hire people to come into his home to take care of himself, to take care of him. And he needs to pay those people. And then we create taxes and income and all those kinds of problems. So that obviously talks about long-term care insurance, which he's now listening to me. But I'm saying that's not good enough, because if you don't have that trusted care partner or that trusted person who we're going to get a POA so they're able to do your, just go into your IRA or your bank accounts or your investment accounts and pull out the money to pay for it, or even file the claim with the long-term care insurance. You're a solo ager. If you don't have that trusted care partner as somebody to come in there and look after you, we got a problem. And you can hire this person. That gets a little bit messy and expensive, but if we're going to hire somebody to stand by, or a company to stand by and do that, we better find them now. We're not going to go looking for them at 82. And furthermore, this POA is you can't even take your minimum distribution out of your IRA. You know, say you're 77, or when he's 82, he's got a big minimum distribution due on this big IRA. He can't even take it. The custodian, they can't talk to him because he's not capable to make decisions. They're going to have to do a guardian ad litem or something. So again, I want to get back out of the story and we got to get this done, like for him very quickly, is get a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, possibly the same person. And I'm nominating some of his nephews and nieces, because he does have those, and to pick one of them and maybe a backup, and let's get them to agree. And we can put the brother down there in case this happens next week or next year or next month. Maybe put him down first, but put the other one of them down second. And then let's think about paying them, because this guy's got money is not his problem, but it all goes back to planning for solo aging. So, Tom, I want you to just react to that a little bit because you've met this guy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the hard parts about the solo aging issue is you don't have that natural person that's going to step in and help you. Like when you're married, your spouse is that natural person that's there to help when you're not able to do it. So that part is, not easy, where you're going through an issue, but just in terms of identifying the person, not that complicated. If you're solo aging and you have kids, again, maybe not that hard. You probably name one of your kids as long as you trust them and they're able to do it. So that part's not easy. The real issue becomes when we have someone who's solo aging that maybe they don't have a spouse either because of divorce or widowed, or they've just been single their whole life, and they have no kids. This gets really complicated, right? Who do we identify this person? And you need to identify them early, right? While you're still able to make those decisions when you're in your 60s, when you're even earlier, if you can, because ultimately, if you're trying to figure that out when the crisis is happening, it's too late, right? You're not going to get the right person. You're going to run the risk of picking the wrong person who takes advantage of you. I mean, there's all sorts of stories of people coming in and doing that. So you need to think through it. Although it's not fun to think about, it's not a great conversation to sit down and have with us. It's very important because if you don't, the consequences of that down the road are very costly. So again, you need to think through that. Family is nice. Like Hans mentioned, there are professional people who can serve in that role, professional trustees and stuff if you go the trust route. Not the solution we go to first, but when there's no other options, that we can do that. And if you don't have nieces and nephews, maybe a good friend, ideally someone who's maybe a little bit younger than you, because ultimately when this happens, it's not going to be now. Presumably it's going to happen, 15, 20 years from now. So you want that person to be around to be able to do it. So who it is, right? You can figure that out, or we can work with you to try to identify that person. But I've seen too many people that is the stop sign before them doing the planning, right? They're not getting the power of attorneys done. They're not setting things up in a way because they can't identify that person. So they just say, okay, never mind, I'm not going to worry about it. And that's the worst thing you could do, because ultimately the problem still exists, and you need to think through who that trusted care partner is going to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, this fellow, long-term care insurance is one of his problems, but that's not his biggest problem because he's got over $3 million, and he's probably still going to have. He's going to have more when this happens to him. It could happen to him in his 70s, but the money or the financial side of things is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem that I want to get taken care of with him is this trusted care partner problem. And then I want to get him to an attorney, which will get him to the right people. And it just kind of brings me in. I learned this during the conference. Is, do you know the difference between an estate planning attorney and an elder law attorney? And, I can't ask you questions and you answer when we're on video, but I did this with our producer, and he gave me a pretty good answer of what the estate planning attorney is. He really didn't know the elder law attorney, and it's kind of simple. The estate planning attorney is for when you're deceased, and the elder law attorney is for when you're alive. And so, as it relates back to this client, I mean, what we're talking about here is he needs both, but he's not too worried about what happens to his stuff after he dies, although I think it'd be great for him to name a proper beneficiary beyond his brother, because he's liable to his brother. Anyhow, that's the estate planning piece of it. He's not all that worried about it. He needs an elder law attorney, and I'm going to get him to one who is really going to focus primarily upon the POA, the power of attorney, and the healthcare power of attorney. Those two documents, and we really can't focus on them directly unless we have this trusted care partner. Now, what I want to do is go back. We're focusing too much on the lifelong singles. We want to talk about widows and widowers. Is too many people that are married now do their planning like they're both going to be alive for a long time, and they're going to grow old together, and then one of them is going to get sick, and then the other one is going to be there to take care of them. And you know, sometimes that works out for people, but typically there's a whole lot of other scenarios, I guess is saying. It's typically is one of them dies, the other one lives on as a solo ager, or one of them gets sick, but the other one's sick also, and so now we don't have anybody that can come in and do things. So we can set up powers of attorney and healthcare power of attorney that there's a second and a third, which is typically going to be your children if you have them. And the same thing true with people that are divorced. If they have children, you got one of these barriers, then we got to figure out which one of your kids is going to be the person that's going to do this. And sometimes people have real difficulty, choosing one of their children, but it's usually it's not necessarily good to put them both down with equal powers. That can be done, but it creating some kind of order. So I don't want to harp on this too much. Is preparing for the future with solo aging. We got to get this legal documents in place. We need a crisis preparation plan. I mean, we need to put together a plan, and by a crisis, we're talking about a healthcare crisis. And people think healthcare crisis. You call the ambulance, you go to the hospital, they take care of you in the hospital. Maybe you go to rehab, and then you come back home. Well, that's not the crisis I'm talking about. It's the crisis I'm talking about is where you have a stroke or you develop dementia and they discover it way too long. And now your whole lifestyle is going to change because you need paid people to come in and take care of you. We've got a plan for that. So we need some organization. Then we need to talk about aging in place. This fellow's plan, go back to him, but we could go to other examples, is that most people, whether they're married or single, I know it's in my plan, that I want to age in place. I want to get old in my house. And if I need care, people to come in and take care of me, I want to pay them. And I'm going to use long-term care insurance to pay that bill. So that, but we can talk about that later. We need to talk about aging in place, where you stand on that. And if that's your plan, then we need to talk about home modifications. Stairs in my house, you go up 5 stairs, you get to a platform, then you go up about another, I don't ever counted them, probably 12 stairs. And that's something that is not reasonable if, one of us lives till 90 or 95. Well, we need to either move or install an elevator or something. So we're talking about that. Or possibly relocating to a 55 plus community where the home's all on one level. Independent living is a great option for people. Maybe we're a little young for that, but to move into where you still have your own apartment, you're still living independently, and you keep that going as long as you can. But they have home health care on site so that the people don't have to ride out there in a car. They just come down the hall, go into your apartment, and do stuff that you need done to just keep you independent. All of that needs to be discussed. So, and then the last section on this is really just talking about long-term care and planning for long-term care, and then doing your financial planning in such a way that everything's lined up. So now I want to push it to Tom. I want Tom to react to what I've been saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you have all these different things, right? I mean, and it's multifaceted, right? One is the legal documents, one is finding the person to take care of you. The other piece is like just the physical place you're living, your home, right? Is your home set up in a way that can support you? Not just now, but 20 years from now, 15 years from now, when you're not getting around as easily, it's harder to move. There's steps can be dangerous, right? A lot of issues with seniors is due to falls, right? So you got to be careful with that. So ultimately, trying to think through how to set things up now to avoid the crisis in the future, where most people do is they wait till the crisis happens. Now they're scrambling to figure out what to do because they don't have a plan in place. And what we really want to do with this, as well as with the other planning we're doing, is think about it now. Think about the issues that you could face in the future. Prepare now. Maybe it's not taking action. Maybe you're not putting in the elevator like Hans mentioned yet, but at least you have a plan in place. If you need it, you know where to go to get it. right? I mean, so thinking through all of those things are super important. And I think that that holds true to all the planning that we do, right? Is the reason that we do planning now, looking forward, is looking for where those risks are, looking for what those things that could cause issues down the road, and trying to plan around them, mitigate the risks where possible, insure them if we need to, like in long-term care insurance there. Really trying to set yourself up for the next phase of life to be very comfortable. And this, again, this whole idea becomes very important.
Okay, so let's talk about financial planning. Every financial plan that we do, we're planning, even if it's for a couple, for one of you ultimately to be the solar ager. And that could be for a long period of time. And the clients are there too. They want to look after, you want to look after your spouse, whether that's you or your spouse that lives on as a solo ager. So let's go through during for Social Security, you got one Social Security check. Okay, and if you're a married couple, one of you dies, the larger of the two checks is going to live on. For IRMA, the Medicare tax, it starts at 109,000 of adjusted gross income. So these people, where couples have big IRAs, they die, the spouse becomes a solo ager, and now with Medicare, they got to pull out these big RMDs. And as soon as they get over 109,000, they're paying IRMA, and that starts at like 218 for a married couple. So for long-term care, what are the issues? Is that people that are well-to-do, I'm going to jump right down to the care concierge, is these insurance companies that offer long-term care insurance, they have a whole department in their company that helps you set up care, and they're really not going to help you. They're going to be there to help your children, arranging care to come into your home or leading you to an assisted living in the proper places. That's an asset that's often overlooked. An emphasis on home health care and using it in the nicest, for my situation, in the nicest assisted living. If I have to go to one of these, I want to go to the nicest one. Your IRA 401k for a solo ager. I mean, first of all, your RMDs are going to be filing, and your tax return is going to be at a single taxpayer rate. As far as your income, life annuities are less expensive. So in other words, if you want to set up a recurring income that's going to last as long as you do, or as long as your life, that can be done when there's only one of you to protect on that income. It comes at a smaller price. You've obviously only got one Social Security check, and you have less ability to absorb risk. So typically, if we're doing financial planning for you, we're going to dial down your risk some. When we talk about estate planning, which is the topic of the video, we've got really just dealing with, we already talked about the documents that the elder law attorney is going to draw up for you. And as far as estate planning, in talking about what happens after you die, I mean, that's just of importance. And a lot of times you're going to want to look after that trusted care partner better than you look after everyone else if it's one of your children. And then the last one, taxes, is just that single filer tax rate. I want to also bring up something, is if you sell your home as a solo ager, you get a $250,000 exclusion from capital gains tax on the sale of a home. If you were married when you sell your house, you get a $500,000 exclusion. So this is actually, looks nice, but it's smaller for the solo ager. So with all of that, I mean, it's just, I want to point back at solo aging. Are you prepared? I got a lot out of these seminars, and you need to think about growing old, aging, where you want it to do it, where you want to be in your own home, or perhaps in an independent living, 55 plus community, assisted living, and then what you want your financial matters to look like. If you do get into a position where you can't take care of yourself, either financially or just physically, where you need to bring in people, help with the activities of daily living, who is that person going to be, and what sort of documents do we need to get in place? I mean, we can lead you to all this. So I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil,
And I'm Tom Griffith.
and we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.